Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and look at how a seemingly insignificant little DVD rental business literally dismantled a multi-billion-dollar entertainment monopoly. I mean, it's a classic David and Goliath story, right? But with a major tech twist that completely reshaped how we consume media across the US and, honestly, the entire world. It completely changed our living rooms forever.
So think back to the early 2000s. Millions of viewers were trapped in a really frustrating routine. You'd get home from work, crash on the couch, turn on the TV, scroll through hundreds of wildly expensive channels, and somehow still find absolutely nothing to watch. The old reality meant you were paying a massive cable bill every single month, mostly for channels you never even looked at. Shows aired at fixed times, which meant you literally had to schedule your life around the TV guide. And if you missed an episode, well, you just missed it. Oh, and the ads, they were totally unavoidable, right in the middle of the best scenes. Cable TV had a complete stranglehold on American entertainment for decades with this exact model, mostly because nobody had a better alternative. But then, the Netflix model appeared. It offered a radical, almost unbelievable alternative, one low price, totally on-demand viewing, and zero advertisements.
All right, that brings us to part one, the status quo and the Trojan horse. Let's look at how the established giants were operating and how this ultimate underdog quietly slipped in through the back door. Crazy enough, Blockbuster completely ignored the threat. Let's wind the clock back to 1997. Netflix was founded, but at the time, it wasn't the streaming giant we all know today. It was simply a DVD by mail rental service. Instead of driving to a physical store on a Friday night, crossing your fingers that the new release wasn't completely sold out, you could just order DVDs online and get those iconic red envelopes in the mail a few days later. Best of all, zero late fees. No stressful driving, no rushing back to beat a Dropbox deadline. It was so simple, and people absolutely loved it. Meanwhile, Blockbuster, the absolute undisputed king of movie rentals back then, made a fatal assumption. They genuinely believed customers would always prefer the experience of going to physical retail stores. By completely brushing off this little mail order startup, they essentially set the stage for their own destruction.
Which brings us to part two, the paradigm shift. Because Netflix's ultimate vision wasn't just to make renting movies a tiny bit easier, their actual goal was to replace TV completely. They didn't just want a piece of the pie, they wanted the whole bakery.
Just take a look at this incredible timeline. 1997, they start as a DVD rental service. Then, a massive leap in 2007, launching a streaming platform. And finally, evolving into the era of original content with defining megahits like House of Cards, Narcos, and Stranger Things. But you know, that middle step in 2007, that was an incredibly bold move. Think about the tech landscape in the US back then. Internet speeds were painfully slow. Buffering was basically a constant way of life. Smart TVs barely existed. You had to hook up clunky boxes or gaming consoles just to get the app on your screen. Plus, cable companies still dominated the entire industry. But Netflix took the leap anyway, banking entirely on the future of internet infrastructure. At first, a lot of people simply didn't believe streaming would even work. But Netflix understood a deep underlying shift in society long before any of the legacy companies did. Technology was changing human behavior. They realized that people craved absolute convenience. They wanted freedom. They wanted total control over their entertainment. Netflix figured out that if they could deliver all three of those things, human behavior would naturally follow the technology. It really wasn't just about the delivery method, it was about the psychology of the consumer. And their solution was just beautifully elegant. Just click and watch. It was a completely frictionless, revolutionary concept. Suddenly, you didn't have to deal with physical DVDs or worry if a disc was horribly scratched. There was no waiting around for the mail to arrive. And most importantly, there were absolutely no broadcast schedules to follow. The days of rushing home through traffic just to catch primetime network television, officially over. You watched exactly what you wanted, exactly when you wanted. So this triggers part three, the fall of the giants. This is the moment cord-cutting actually begins, dealing a devastating blow to the old guard.
Netflix systematically attacked cable's biggest weakness. Remember how traditional cable bundles forced you to pay for everything? You were basically subsidizing hundreds of junk channels just to get the 3 networks you actually cared about. Well, Netflix completely dismantled that frustrating model with 4 really simple consumer-friendly pillars. Step 1, one low monthly price that was just a fraction of a typical cable bill. Step 2, unlimited entertainment. Step 3, 0 advertisements. And Step 4, no schedules and no locked-in contracts. You could literally cancel anytime. It gave consumers all the power that the cable monopolies used to hoard. And the fallout? Well, Blockbuster collapsed into bankruptcy. The impact of Netflix's new model was swift and absolutely brutal. Cable companies started losing millions of customers as cord cuttings spread like wildfire across the country. Those neighborhood DVD rental stores completely vanished from our strip malls. And Blockbuster, a titan once worth billions of dollars with thousands of stores, was utterly destroyed. Netflix actually pulled off the impossible. A company that started by mailing DVDs in little red envelopes successfully took down an entire, deeply entrenched industry. But that leads us to a pretty fascinating dilemma. What happens when everyone completely copies your streaming model? Because eventually the secret was out, and every major media and tech company rushed to build a streaming service of their own. Having done the impossible, Netflix suddenly woke up in a highly vulnerable position. Streaming was no longer a novelty, it was the new normal. They urgently needed a brand new advantage to survive against this incoming wave of heavily funded copycats. To survive, they had to pivot to part 4, building an original empire. To maintain their dominance and keep subscribers fiercely loyal, they had to evolve from being a mere delivery pipeline for other people's movies into a massive, global entertainment studio themselves. And guys, this wasn't just a business pivot, it was a total cultural takeover. First, they started producing original content. We're talking massive cultural touchstones like Stranger Things, Narcos, and House of Cards. This suddenly turned Netflix into premium, must-have television. Second, they released entire seasons instantly. And third, this profoundly normalized binge-watching culture. By dropping entire seasons all at once, they didn't just entertain us, they officially replaced traditional television viewing with a brand new American norm. Canceling your weekend plans or staying awake all night just to finish a season became a huge shared cultural experience. But as we see time and time again in the business world, we come to part 5, full circle. Success inevitably creates a whole new set of challenges, and Netflix's massive triumph ironically birthed some very complex problems. Today, Netflix's current reality is essentially a two-front war. On the outside, they're facing incredibly fierce competition from massive heavyweights. I mean, you've got Disney, Amazon, Apple, and HBO. Everyone wants a piece of the streaming pie, and they all have ridiculously deep pockets. Then, on the inside, Netflix is battling major operational issues. They're dealing with subscriber backlash over rising prices, they've had to implement highly controversial crackdowns on password sharing, and they are navigating slowing market growth because, quite frankly, the pool of brand new subscribers is shrinking. The easy growth phase is definitely over. Which brings us to the ultimate dramatic irony. Netflix is kind of becoming the giant company it once disrupted. The very business that completely destroyed the bloated, expensive, deeply frustrating cable industry is now wrestling with the exact same market pressures. They're raising prices, they're introducing ad-supported tiers, and in a lot of ways, they're starting to operate a lot like the cable companies once did when they ruled American entertainment. Netflix didn't just build a successful business. They profoundly changed how we consume stories, how we spend our free time, and even how shows are actually created, all starting with just a few mailed DVDs. But as they morph into the new Goliath, wrestling with subscription fatigue, pricing tiers, and slower growth, you really have to wonder, will the company that changed human behavior eventually be disrupted by the next David? Who exactly is waiting in the wings right now to disrupt them? Think about that the next time you sit down, click, and watch.